My 14-year-old daughter, who uses a wheelchair, was resting quietly in her bedroom on the second floor. She had a hard day at therapy and just wanted to rest. She likes to look out the window from her bed and watch the stars or listen to the wind in the trees. It was a calm night. Then Karen from the HOA walked into our house without knocking. She ran up the stairs and yelled, "You can't have rooms with medical stuff like this. It looks messy and breaks the rules." My daughter said softly, "I'm just resting. I'm not hurting anyone." Karen got very mad. She pulled a big laser gun from her bag and shot a bright red beam right at my daughter. My daughter screamed in pain. The hot laser burned her skin and made her body hurt a lot. Her scared eyes looked around for help as she put her arms over her face. Karen stood in the door with a mean smile and said, "Now the room is clean and follows the rules." She looked very proud of herself. She did not know the angry man running up the stairs behind her was my daughter's father, the top Space Force commander, just home from a secret mission. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you are watching from. And please hit subscribe for more stories where the good guys always win. The night was quiet, the kind of deep, steady calm that settles over a neighborhood when most of the world has gone to sleep. Streetlights glowed softly, casting long, warm lines across the empty pavement below. Inside the house, the second floor was still, except for the faint hum of a ceiling fan turning lazily above. In her bedroom, 14-year-old Emily sat in her wheelchair by the window, gazing out at the night sky. Therapy had been exhausting today, her arms and legs aching from hours of stretching, strengthening, and trying to push past her limits. The kind of physical and mental exertion that left her body tired, but her mind swirling with small victories and quiet pride. Tonight, all she wanted was peace. To watch the stars, to hear the wind whispering through the trees outside, and to feel the familiar hum of her room. Her bedroom wasn't just a space. It was a sanctuary she had crafted carefully over the years. Posters of constellations lined the walls. Glow-in-the-dark stars were stuck strategically on the ceiling. And her favorite books were stacked neatly on the shelves beside her bed. Each item had its place. Each comforted her in a way the outside world sometimes could not. The soft breeze drifted in through the slightly open window, brushing against her face and carrying the subtle scent of blooming night jasmine from the garden below. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, letting it calm her. The wind in the trees sounded like waves lapping at the shore, soothing and rhythmic. She breathed deeply, feeling herself sink into the quiet, letting the stress of the day melt slowly into the background. Her wheelchair was positioned perfectly by the window, angled so she could look out without strain. She loved the stars, not just because they were beautiful, but because they reminded her of possibility. The infinite sky stretched out beyond her, and for a little while the difficulties of the day, therapy struggles, social anxieties, or physical frustrations, felt smaller, more manageable. She imagined herself floating among those stars, weightless and free, where nothing could reach her. Her desk lamp cast a warm golden light across the room, illuminating her sketchbook where she sometimes drew constellations or imaginary landscapes. Tonight she hadn't touched it, she only observed, letting the stillness fill her senses. The rhythmic turning of her ceiling fan created faint shadows that danced across the walls, a gentle reminder that even in motion, the world could be calm. A soft creak came from the hallway as someone moved downstairs, but it didn't disturb her. She knew her parents were there, her mother tidying up quietly, her father reviewing a report on his tablet. Their presence was comforting, an invisible safety net beneath the fragile bubble of calm that surrounded her. Emily exhaled slowly, letting herself feel the security of knowing she was watched over, even without someone being directly beside her. Outside, a lone car passed down the street. Its headlights swept across the living room window briefly before fading into the distance. Emily didn't flinch. She had learned over time to separate the small disturbances of the world. Rom, the cocoon of her sanctuary. The world could be unpredictable, noisy, and overwhelming, but here, she was the one setting the pace. She was allowed to breathe, to rest, to simply exist without scrutiny. Her thoughts drifted to the therapy exercises she had worked so hard on today. Some had gone better than expected. Others had been frustrating. Still, she felt a quiet satisfaction in her progress. Even small victories mattered, especially on days when movement felt heavier than usual. Tonight, she allowed herself to celebrate those moments, tucked safely in her room, undisturbed and alone with her thoughts. The night deepened. The stars above grew brighter as the city lights faded further into darkness. A lone owl called from a distant tree, its soft, hollow sound echoing faintly. The room seemed to breathe with her, the gentle wind carrying the music of the night indoors. Emily leaned back slightly in her wheelchair, letting the familiar sensation of support relax her tense shoulders. For a moment, she allowed herself a full smile. No expectations, no criticism, no rules beyond her own. Just the warmth of her room, the gentle sway of shadows, and the promise of morning that would come eventually. Here, she was safe. Here, she was free to recharge. Some nights, the peace felt almost sacred, fragile yet unbreakable. Tonight was one of those nights. Emily's gaze returned to the stars. She traced imaginary constellations with her eyes, connecting dots that existed only in her mind, weaving stories of distant worlds and adventures she might one day have. Her parents' soft footsteps moved past her door, a quiet lullaby of reassurance. She didn't need to see them, she just needed to know they were there. Emily exhaled again, deeper this time, letting the stillness settle fully into her body. Every tense muscle relaxed, every anxious thought dimmed. And in that quiet, suspended moment between night and dawn, Emily felt completely, utterly at peace, her sanctuary intact, her world calm, and her mind free to wander among the stars. The calm of Emily's room was a fragile bubble, stretching thin over the quiet hum of the house. Outside, the neighborhood was silent under a deep, star-strewn sky. Inside, her parents moved quietly, each occupied with their own tasks, while keeping a watchful ear on her. Everything was peaceful, as it had been for the past hour. Emily had settled into the rhythm of the evening, the slow turning of the ceiling fan, the gentle rustle of leaves outside, the soft golden glow of her desk lamp. It was a sanctuary, carefully curated, where she could breathe after a long, exhausting day of therapy. But peace, Emily knew, was often temporary. A sudden, sharp sound echoed from the stairwell, a footstep, purposeful and heavy, distinct from the usual rhythm of her parents' movements. Emily stiffened slightly. The sound of someone climbing the stairs at night, unannounced, immediately shattered the delicate calm she had fought to create. She tightened her grip on the arms of her wheelchair, her knuckles pale against the smooth metal. The doorknob rattled. The door swung open abruptly, banging lightly against the wall. A loud, high-pitched voice rang through the room. "You can't have rooms like this. It looks messy and breaks all the rules." Emily froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Karen from the HOA stood in the doorway, her posture rigid, shoulders squared, clipboard in hand. She didn't pause to explain herself or knock. She simply barged in, filling the room with her presence and loud declarations. Emily's voice, small and uncertain, barely rose above the tension in the air. "I'm just resting. I'm not hurting anyone," she whispered. Karen's glare swept across the room, taking in the wheelchair, the carefully arranged medical equipment, and the few scattered books and personal items Emily had left out from earlier activities. To Karen, it seemed disorderly. To Emily, it was life, organized in the way that made her feel comfortable and safe. "This equipment," Karen said sharply, pointing at the wheelchair and some therapy devices neatly stacked in the corner, "is not allowed to be out like this. It's messy, it's unsightly, and it violates community rules. I cannot let this continue." Emily's stomach twisted. She looked down at her hands folded in her lap, unsure of how to respond. She wanted to explain that every item had its place, that the equipment wasn't dangerous, that she needed these tools to live her life, comfortably. But Karen's voice was loud, relentless, and demanding attention, making it hard to find words. Her mother stepped quietly into the doorway, placing herself subtly between Emily and Karen, though keeping her posture calm rather than confrontational. "Karen," she said evenly, "this is a private home. You are not permitted to enter or make these judgments about her room." Karen's eyes snapped toward her, but she didn't back down. "I'm enforcing the rules. This is about standards. If everyone ignored the regulations, chaos would take over. You have to understand, this is serious." The mother stayed composed, gently placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. "We understand the rules of the community," she said, "but those rules do not give anyone the right to barge into a private home or intimidate a minor. You need to leave immediately." Karen's voice rose, more urgent, more insistent. "But the equipment, the room, it's completely unacceptable. Don't you care what other people will think? The standards are clear." Emily felt a lump in her throat. She didn't like confrontation. She didn't like anger. She just wanted to rest, to feel the quiet of the night. Her fingers brushed the edge of her wheelchair, seeking the familiar texture that always made her feel grounded. I'm just trying to relax," she said softly, almost pleading. Karen's expression hardened. She waved the clipboard toward Emily as if it could enforce compliance with some invisible law. "You can." "Oh, hide behind excuses. Standards exist for a reason. Rules must be followed." The mother's voice rose slightly, firm and unwavering. "Karen, this is harassment. You are on private property uninvited. You will leave now, for a moment." Karen froze, blinking rapidly. She hadn't expected resistance from someone so calm, so composed. Her entire plan to assert authority, to intimidate Emily into compliance, began to falter under the presence of both mother and daughter acting with calm certainty. Emily's father appeared at the top of the stairs just then, tall and commanding. Even without a word, his presence shifted the energy in the room. Karen, confident moments before, now hesitated. "This behavior is unacceptable," the father said evenly, voice calm but filled with authority. "You are on private property without consent. Step away from the room immediately, or further actions will be taken." Karen's jaw tightened. She looked between the three of them, her authority crumbling in the presence of someone who clearly had more expertise and presence than she had anticipated. Slowly, her grip on the clipboard loosened. Her confident stance wavered. For the first time in the evening, Emily felt a small surge of relief. The immediate danger of confrontation had lessened, not because Karen had gone quietly, but because her own parents had established clear boundaries, projecting calm, confidence, and authority. The room no longer felt unsafe. Karen's voice faltered. I just... rules," she stammered. Her usual bravado had been stripped away by the father's calm intervention and the firm, united front of the family. Emily watched as Karen backed toward the door, unsure how to continue. The mother gently adjusted Emily in her wheelchair, letting her lean back comfortably, while the father's gaze remained fixed on Karen until she was completely gone from the landing. The house sighed with relief once she left. The gentle rustle of leaves outside, the soft hum of the ceiling fan, and the dim light of the desk lamp returned to dominate the room. Emily's chest rose and fell steadily as her racing heartbeat slowed. Her sanctuary, fragile but resilient, was restored. She glanced at her parents, who both gave her small, reassuring nods. No words were needed. In that moment, she knew she was safe, her home was secure, and her quiet night would continue uninterrupted. The stars outside twinkled silently, offering their age-old calm as Emily let herself settle back into the gentle rhythm of her sanctuary once more. The tension had passed. For now. The night that had once been calm now felt charged, the stillness of Emily's room replaced by an energy that made her heart race. Karen from the HOA stood in the doorway, clipboard raised like a weapon of authority. Her sharp eyes darted around the room, scanning the wheelchair, the neatly arranged therapy equipment, and the small personal touches Emily had placed around her sanctuary. Each item was a target in Karen's gaze. Every detail interpreted as messy or non-compliant. Emily gripped the arms of her wheelchair, knuckles white, and hugged herself instinctively. She had learned over time to navigate the world's scrutiny, to push through uncomfortable situations. But this was different. This was someone invading her private space, someone asserting control over her world simply because they believed they had the right. "I don't understand why this is so difficult for you to follow," Karen snapped, stepping further into the room. "All of this, it's chaotic, it's distracting, it breaks the rules of the community. You have to comply. You have to fix this." Emily's voice was barely audible, trembling under the weight of Karen's aggression. I'm just resting. I'm not hurting anyone," she whispered. Her words felt tiny in the vast energy of the intruder's rage, swallowed by the volume and confidence in Karen's voice. Karen pointed to the wheelchair, the assistive devices, and the small therapy tools lined along the shelves. "These shouldn't even be here. They're disruptive. They're unsightly. You can't expect me or anyone to ignore this. Rules exist for a reason, and you're violating them." Emily's stomach twisted. Her world, carefully curated, seemed under siege by someone who didn't understand her needs at all. She felt trapped in her own room, hemmed in by Karen's loud proclamations. It was more than discomfort, it was fear. Fear of having her personal space disregarded, her privacy Viola. Ted, her life interrupted by someone who believed she had the right to dictate how she lived. Her mother's presence was immediate, a subtle shift at the edge of the room. One hand rested on Emily's shoulder, offering reassurance without intruding or escalating the tension further. "Karen, this is private property," her mother said calmly but firmly. "You are not permitted to enter uninvited or dictate how this child arranges her room. You need to leave now." Karen's eyes flicked toward her, narrowing. "I am enforcing standards," she insisted, as if sheer force of will could validate her intrusion. If everyone ignored the rules, chaos would follow. "Do you want this neighborhood to fall apart?" Emily flinched at the words. To Karen, it was abstract, the idea of standards and order. To Emily, it was very real. Someone disregarding her sense of safety, invading the room where she should have been protected, and speaking as if she had no right to exist comfortably in her own home. Her mother's hand tightened gently on Emily's shoulder. "Standards do not give you the right to intimidate or harass," she said firmly. "This is harassment. You are overstepping and you must leave immediately." Karen's hands gripped the clipboard more tightly. "You can't ignore the rules. You're teaching her that rules don't matter," she snapped. Her voice echoed against the walls, making the room feel smaller, the air heavier, as though her words pressed down on Emily from all directions. Emily's breathing quickened. She hugged herself tighter, feeling the familiar textures of her blanket, the arms of her wheelchair, anything that made the room feel like it belonged to her. Her pulse raced, but she reminded herself to breathe. The fear was intense, but she was not alone. Her mother was there. Her father would arrive. She could handle this. She had handled difficult situations before. The tension stretched on, thick and heavy, as Karen continued her verbal assault. She enumerated imaginary violations, pointed at equipment as if it were evidence of wrongdoing, and lectured about appearance and compliance, as though Emily's life depended on correcting them immediately. Each word was an attempt to dominate, to intimidate, to make Emily shrink under the weight of authority. Emily closed her eyes briefly, counting slowly in her head, drawing on techniques she had learned in therapy to ground herself. 1, 2, 3, 4, each number a tether to calm, a reminder that she could withstand this, that Karen's aggression could not physically harm her. She reminded herself of the facts. She was safe, her parents were present, and Karen had no real authority in her room. Her mother's voice cut through the tension again, steadier now, as if a switch had been flipped. "Karen, you are here uninvited. You are harassing a minor. You must leave, now." Karen paused mid-sentence. Her energy faltered under the mother's calm authority. The power she had tried to project, intimidation, aggression, loud insistence, was failing. She looked around the room, suddenly aware that she was the one exposed, intruding into a private space without permission. Emily's pulse began to slow, the tension easing slightly. She shifted in her wheelchair, allowing herself a small exhale. Karen's glare flicked toward her again, but it lacked the same force, the same certainty. The intruder was losing ground. At the top of the stairs, a shadow appeared. Emily's father had arrived. Just his presence changed the energy in the room, anchoring the chaos with authority and calm. Karen stiffened, recognizing that her intimidation tactics were no match for someone trained to assess, risk, act decisively, and protect those under his care. Emily's mother motioned subtly, guiding Emily to sit a little taller, reinforcing her own boundaries. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her words failing her. She realized she had overstepped, miscalculated, and underestimated the strength of the family's unity. The tension in the room reached a breaking point, but it would break on Karen's terms, not Emily's. The intimidation, the verbal assaults, the overstepping boundaries, they would all end. The parents were present, composed and prepared. Emily could finally relax, knowing that authority, expertise, and love were on her side. For the first time that night, she allowed herself a small smile. She was still frightened, still tense, but she was safe. The room was hers again. Her sanctuary, though really threatened, was intact, and as Karen hesitated at the door, unsure how to proceed, Emily realized something important. She didn't need to shrink or hide. The room belonged to her. The rules were hers to follow, and her parents would ensure no one crossed boundaries again. The tension in Emily's bedroom had reached a boiling point. Karen from the HOA hovered near the doorway. clipboard raised, voice sharp and energy aggressive. Emily sat in her wheelchair, knuckles white on the armrests, trying to calm her racing heart. She hugged herself instinctively, wishing she could somehow disappear into the familiar protective bubble of her room. The medical equipment neatly arranged in the corner, her constellation posters, and the small plush toys she kept on her bed, all of it felt like it was under siege. Emily's mother had tried everything. Her voice had been calm but firm. Repeated warnings had been issued, and yet Karen refused to relent. She continued to point out imaginary violations, lecturing loudly on rules and standards, completely disregarding the fact that she was in someone else's private space. Every word she spoke amplified Emily's sense of vulnerability, and every glance she cast at the room felt like a judgment against the life Emily had worked to organize for herself. Emily took a deep breath and counted in her head, as she had been taught. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each number anchored her to calm, a fragile tether against the storm of Karen's aggression. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was trapped, powerless, and utterly exposed. And then, the atmosphere shifted. A shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. It wasn't hurried, it wasn't panicked. It was deliberate, controlled, and commanding. Emily's father had arrived. Just the sight of him changed the energy in the room. He was tall and imposing, yet calm, the kind of presence that naturally drew attention and de-escalated tension. His uniform was subtle but authoritative, a symbol of years of experience in leadership, strategy, and high-pressure decision-making. Even before he spoke, Karen's confident stance faltered slightly. "Karen," he said, his voice low but resonant, carrying a weight that filled the room. "Step away from my daughter." There was no shouting, no frantic energy, just calm, precise authority, the kind that demanded attention without raising a hand, that enforced boundaries without aggression. Karen froze, blinking, taken aback by the sudden shift. For the first time that evening, she realized that she was outmatched, not because of physical force, but because of presence, experience, and expertise. Emily's father moved forward, his pace deliberate. He positioned himself between Karen and the wheelchair, creating a physical and psychological barrier that could not be ignored. His eyes swept over the room, assessing the situation with the precision of someone trained to evaluate risk in seconds. The room, which had been charged with tension and intimidation, now felt anchored, stable. Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. She shifted slightly in her wheelchair, exhaling slowly. Her mother's hand tightened gently on her shoulder, a silent affirmation that the situation was now under control. Karen, however, was still defiant. Her clipboard clutched as though it could somehow enforce her will. "I'm just enforcing the rules," Karen protested, her voice rising, though the force behind it had weakened. "This is about standards. This is about compliance. You can't ignore this." Emily's father raised a single hand, not threatening but commanding attention. "You are on private property," he said, tone measured but firm, without consent. "You are harassing a minor. Step back, or this situation will be documented and escalated immediately. You have no authority here." Karen's shoulders stiffened. She opened her mouth, trying to argue, but the words faltered. She had expected resistance from a single parent, perhaps a verbal disagreement, but not the composed, unwavering presence of a high-ranking authority figure whose calm radiated confidence and command. Her usual tactics, intimidation, verbal pressure, and loud insistence, were now completely ineffective. The father continued, slow and deliberate, giving her no space to recover her bravado. "Every action you take in this room is being observed and documented. Any further intrusion will result in formal action. Do you understand?" Karen's gaze flicked nervously between Emily, her mother, and the father. She realized that her overconfidence had left her exposed. There was no escape from the authority, experience, and coordination that this family now presented. Her intimidation had failed. Emily's mother gently adjusted her daughter in the wheelchair, whispering reassuringly, "It's okay, sweetie. You're safe." Emily felt the tension in her shoulders ease fractionally, the fear replaced by the comfort of knowing that she was protected by people who had control of the situation. The father's eyes never left Karen. "You will leave this property immediately," he stated. "Failure to comply will result in further consequences, including legal action. This is your final warning." For a long, tense moment, Karen hesitated. The energy in the room was no longer hers to command. The confidence she had wielded like a weapon had evaporated under the calm, unyielding authority of Emily's father. Slowly, she stepped back toward the door, realizing that the battle she had tried to wage was already lost. Emily allowed herself a small, cautious smile. The room no longer felt like a place of threat. The familiar objects, her carefully arranged equipment, and even the gentle hum of the ceiling fan felt like home again. She wasn't alone. She was protected. Her parents had established clear boundaries, ensuring that no one could overstep them again. Karen muttered something indistinct, a last attempt to justify herself, and finally exited the room. The door losing softly behind her. The tension dissolved, replaced by the quiet safety that Emily had craved since the night began. Her father turned toward her, softening his tone as he knelt beside the wheelchair. "You're safe now, Emily. Nothing can touch you here." Emily exhaled fully for the first time in what felt like hours. The room returned to its rhythm, the spinning mobile on her desk, the glow of her lamp, and the stars outside her window. She leaned back slightly, finally able to feel the security of her sanctuary. The night, once disrupted, had been reclaimed. The balance restored. Emily's room was safe again, and her parents' calm authority had ensured that no one could ever take that peace from her, not Karen, not anyone. The tension of the evening had not fully dissipated, even after Karen had retreated from Emily's room. The hallway outside was quiet now, but the air still vibrated with the echoes of confrontation. Emily sat in her wheelchair, slightly slouched but more relaxed than before, her mother gently adjusting a blanket over her legs. Her father remained near the doorway, alert and composed, scanning the hallway as though every shadow could conceal another surprise. Karen lingered on the landing, half in, half out of the room. Her face betrayed uncertainty now. The confidence that had carried her into the house moments before had faltered, replaced by hesitation. The clipboard she had held as a symbol of authority now seemed almost comical in her hands. Too small, too flimsy, too powerless in the face of the calm, deliberate presence before her. "Listen," the father said, his tone low but firm. "You have entered private property without permission. You have harassed a minor. Every word, every action has been observed and documented. You are in violation of both HOA policy and general legal standards regarding trespassing and harassment. Do you understand the seriousness of this?" Karen's lips pressed together. She shifted her weight nervously from one foot to the other. The usual bravado she carried, the energy she wielded as authority, was gone. She realized that the father wasn't bluffing, wasn't exaggerating. Every action had been noted, every moment recorded, every potential consequence carefully outlined. Emily watched silently, still curled slightly into her blanket, her eyes wide but calmer. The fear she had felt earlier now ebbed slowly, replaced by a sense of security that radiated from the adults around her. Her father's presence was more than physical. It carried certainty, authority, and protection. It reassured her that boundaries existed, and more importantly, that they would be enforced. Karen swallowed, trying to respond, but her voice came out uncertain, almost shrill. I was just enforcing rules. I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean what?" the father asked, his voice calm but cutting. "That rules allow you to intimidate, harass, or enter a home uninvited? That threatening a child's sense of safety is acceptable? Intent does not erase responsibility, Karen. You must leave this property immediately, and you are prohibited from returning unless specifically invited by the family or an authorized authority. Do you understand?" Karen's eyes flicked between Emily, her mother, and the father. The weight of accountability pressed on her. Her plan to assert control, to intimidate, to enforce standards in a way that disregarded the family's autonomy had failed. She was exposed, powerless, and her previous sense of superiority had vanished in the face of reasoned authority. Yes, she murmured finally, her voice lacking conviction. The father didn't let her off the hook. He stepped closer, documenting the final steps of the intrusion with a quiet efficiency. A phone in his hand, photos and timestamps of her presence in the hallway, a written log of her words, and witness statements from both him and his wife, all carefully arranged to ensure that the record was irrefutable. Karen's intrusion was fully documented, and any attempt at future intimidation could now be addressed formally, legally, and decisively. Emily's mother stood a little behind her husband, keeping her hand on Emily's shoulder. Her presence was calm but firm, reinforcing the message that the family operated as a unit and that their child's safety was non-negotiable. Karen's eyes met hers for a brief moment, and for the first time, she recognized the unwavering determination of a mother protecting her child. It was not a threat of violence, but a silent, undeniable assertion of authority. "You will not approach this home or this family again," the father said, his voice softening slightly but still deliberate. "If you do, legal action will follow immediately. The HOA has also been notified of your behavior. They are aware of the unauthorized entry, harassment, and intimidation. You are accountable for your actions." Karen's jaw tightened. She understood the implications. The HOA, once a platform she wielded for control, now held her accountable. Any attempt to argue, to deny, or to exert influence would be met with formal consequences. The family had anticipated her tactics and neutralized them entirely, not with shouting or anger, but with calm, methodical enforcement of boundaries. Slowly, she turned toward the staircase, taking measured steps down, no longer in control of the situation. Each step echoed in the hallway, a stark reminder of the power shift. What had begun as a confrontation, initiated by Karen's self-assigned authority, had ended with her in retreat, accountable for every misstep. Emily exhaled slowly, feeling the tension release from her body. The wheelchair beneath her felt safe again. The blanket her mother had tucked around her legs felt secure and comforting. Her sanctuary had been defended, and the night's peace, fragile though it had been, was restored. The father watched Karen descend the stairs, ensuring she fully left the premises before turning back to Emily and her mother. "It's over," he said quietly, kneeling beside his daughter. "You're safe now. Nothing can touch you here." Emily nodded, her small smile tentative but genuine. The calm, the certainty, and the protection were tangible, a shield that no intruder could pierce. Her mother adjusted her hand on Emily's shoulder, glancing at her husband. "Everything's documented," she said. "She can't come back. Not here, not to Emily, not to this house." The father nodded. "Boundaries are enforced. Accountability is clear. And the most important thing, Emily is safe." For the first time in hours, Emily felt completely at ease. The stress, the fear, and the tension had dissipated. Her sanctuary was intact. Her parents had reclaimed control. Karen's intrusion had been stopped, and the family's rules, privacy, and peace had been fully restored. The stars outside twinkled faintly in the night sky, as if celebrating the return of calm. Emily leaned back in her wheelchair, closing her eyes for a moment, letting the serenity wash over her. The night belonged to her again, safe, protected, and fully her own. And for the first time that evening, she allowed herself to breathe freely, knowing the world inside her room was once again under her control. And, under the steadfast protection of her parents. The sun had begun to rise the following morning, casting warm golden light across the neighborhood. Birds chirped softly in the trees outside, carrying the gentle promise of a new day. Inside the house, Emily's room felt different than it had the night before. The shadows of tension had faded, replaced by the soft glow of calm and the sense of security that comes from knowing boundaries are respected and authority is justly enforced. Emily sat in her wheelchair by the window, looking out at the quiet street below. The therapy equipment, her books, and her personal items were exactly where she had left them, untouched, unchallenged, and fully under her control. The air carried a faint scent of the jasmine outside, and the gentle hum of the ceiling fan added a soothing rhythm to the room. For the first time since the intrusion, she felt the full depth of safety, a sensation that went far beyond physical security. It was the assurance that her home, her sanctuary, was respected. Her mother entered quietly, carrying a cup of tea for herself. She stopped near the wheelchair and rested a hand on Emily's shoulder. "Everything's been handled," she said softly. "Karen won't be back, and the HOA has made sure of it. You don't have to worry anymore." Emily gave a small, relieved smile. Her body relaxed as the tension melted away, replaced by a comforting warmth. The fear and uncertainty that had gripped her the previous night were gone. She felt in control of her space again, and more importantly, she felt protected. Downstairs, the father had already begun formalizing the consequences of the previous night's events. The HOA had received a detailed report, complete with timestamps, photographs, and written accounts of Karen's intrusion. The family's documentation left no room for misinterpretation. Every word, every action, every step Karen had taken was recorded, establishing an irrefutable account of overstepping boundaries and harassment, wit, In hours, the HOA board convened and issued a formal apology. Karen had been removed from all enforcement duties and reprimanded for her behavior. The board clarified community policies, explicitly stating that no member could enter a resident's home uninvited, nor could any child be subjected to intimidation or harassment under the guise of enforcing rules. Policies were updated to prioritize privacy, safety, and respect for neurodivergent or medically supported residents. Emily's father had reviewed these changes carefully. He appreciated that the policies now codified what had always been common sense: private homes are sanctuaries, and no outsider, no matter how self-assured, can violate that space without consent. He and his wife had met with the HOA representatives to ensure that Emily's family would never face such an intrusion again. The conversation was calm, professional, and thorough, leaving the HOA with no doubt about the importance of boundaries and enforcement of respectful behavior. In her room, Emily adjusted the blanket around her legs and leaned slightly back in her wheelchair. She watched sunlight reflect off the window pane, casting warm streaks across her desk and books. The mobile above her bed spun gently, catching the light, as though celebrating the return of serenity. Her hands traced the familiar contours of her wheelchair arms, each touch a reminder that her world was once again hers, fully and completely. Her mother knelt beside her, adjusting a pillow behind her back. "Do you want to go outside today?" she asked gently. Emily nodded. The thought of fresh air, freedom, and the reassurance of her garden outside made her heart lift. She felt empowered in a way she hadn't before. The family's coordinated response had shown her that she could rely on those around her, and that boundaries were enforceable. Then against someone as bold as Karen. Emily's father entered the room next, carrying a small folder. "I wanted to show you the updates from the HOA," he said, opening the folder to reveal official statements, photographs of the updated policy, and notes confirming Karen's removal from enforcement duties. "They've acknowledged everything," he explained. "Your home, your space, and your privacy are protected now. No one can challenge that again." Emily's eyes widened slightly as she scanned the documents. It was formal, official, and absolute. The rules were now clear, written, and binding. Karen's intrusion was over, and the family's authority and protection had prevailed. Emily allowed herself to feel proud, not just for the outcome, but for her own endurance, her ability to remain calm and steady during a frightening situation. The family spent the rest of the morning together. Emily's parents encouraged her to explore the house, to feel that every corner was now safe and under her control. She wheeled through the hallway, glancing at familiar decorations and familiar textures, each one affirming that her world had returned to normal. Outside, the garden beckoned with sunlight and greenery, promising moments of calm exploration and joy. By the time the afternoon rolled around, Emily was back by her window, looking out at the sky as clouds drifted lazily across the sun. The wind rustled through the trees outside, carrying a soft, reassuring song that seemed to echo the safe. Within the house, she could hear the faint laughter of neighbors in the distance, a reminder that the world beyond her home could be friendly and peaceful too. Her parents stayed nearby, not hovering but always present, a constant, reassuring presence that reminded her of the balance between freedom and protection. Emily traced imaginary constellations in the ceiling glow-in-the-dark stars, smiling to herself. The previous night's intrusion felt like a distant storm now, one that had passed and left the family stronger and more united. As the sun set and the first stars began to twinkle, Emily leaned back in her wheelchair, letting the calm and security envelop her completely. Her room, her sanctuary, was intact. Her home was her own again, and for the first time in a long while, she felt completely, utterly at peace. The quiet night embraced the family, promising that no one could violate the safety of this space again. Emily's sanctuary was protected, her boundaries were respected, and in that calm, secure environment, she could finally rest, free to dream, free to be herself, and free to simply exist in the comfort of a world she knew was safe.